Welcome to this video, which is the Math OD1 Final Exam Review. Let's begin. The first problem asks us to simplify the expression as much as possible. In order to do this, we need to remember our order of operations, which is please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. P stands for parentheses and actually can stand for any grouping symbols. So let's see if we can find some grouping symbols. One grouping symbol that I see here are these parentheses. So I can evaluate 8 minus 10. Well, 8 minus 10 is negative 2. Now the key to success here, or at least one of the keys to success, is to transcribe the entire problem every time you simplify something. Okay? So then we see another set of, well, in this case, brackets, right? And we have to simplify this expression right here. So we have 12 divided by 3 times 2 quantity squared. So we have a division inside our parentheses and we have a multiplication, and we need to figure out which one comes first. Should we divide first or multiply first? Well, remember the way I wrote this, multiplication and division actually have the same order of precedence. So we divide or multiply from left to right, whichever one comes first. Therefore, based on this, we actually need to divide first. So we'll do 12 divided by 3, which is 4. And subsequently, then we would multiply 4 times 2. Again, notice that I'm taking a minute and filling in, transcribing the entire problem so I don't forget anything. Okay? So again, the reason I did multiplication and division before I did exponents and roots is because I was doing the grouping inside of the parentheses. Okay, so then last but not least, 4 times 2 inside those parentheses is 8. You can leave brackets or parentheses around it if you want. It doesn't really matter since there is no negative sign to group or anything like that. And again, just kind of bring everything else down. So we have done all of our grouping symbols. The only grouping symbols that remain are really exponents, right? So we have exponents, and remember exponents and roots have the same order of precedence or the same level of precedence. So roots, we have a root here. The square root of 25 is 5, okay? Then we have negative 2 quantity to the third power. Believe it or not, that is negative 8, okay? Then we have 8 squared is 8 times 8, which is 64. Okay, last but not least, we have 5 times negative 8. That's going to give us negative 40. Okay, so we have done our parentheses. We've done exponents and roots. We've done multiplication and division. We're down to addition and subtraction. So this should give us negative 104. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2. Okay, so this kind of looks a little bit scary, but it really isn't. We just, again, need to remember our order of operations. So we have, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Okay, so that means we don't have any parentheses or grouping symbols. We don't have any exponents. We do have, however, a division. Notice we have division right here. So we're going to have to figure that out. We're going to have to divide before we do any addition or subtraction. Okay, so we have 3 divided by 7, or 3 sevens, divided by 36 over 28. Okay, and again, this guy, he's still hanging out over there, but we're focusing just on this part of it. So how do we divide two fractions? Well, you might remember what we need to do is we need to do the keep, and then we do a change. We change the division to multiplication, and then we flip our fraction. 36 over 28 becomes 28 over 36. So we do a keep, change, flip. Okay, then we can multiply across. Or, if we want to be a little bit lazy, remember we can reduce, right? So 28 divided by 7 is 4, right? And 3 goes into 36 12 times, okay? So we have negative 4 sevenths plus 4 over 12, okay? And if you think about it, we can reduce this even further. Let's be even lazier, right? 4 over 12 actually reduces to 1/3. Okay, again, you don't have to do this, but the more you reduce, the easier your life is going to be. Okay, so we're all done our multiplication and division. Now we have to add or subtract. Now, as we know, we can't combine fractions that don't have the same denominator. Okay, so remember he is missing a 7, so we multiply him by 7 over 7. He is missing a 3, so we multiply him by 3 over 3. Okay, so we end up 3 times negative 4, that's negative 12 over 21. 7 times 1, that's 7 over 21. So what is negative 12 plus 7? Well, negative 12 plus 7 is negative 5. So the final answer is negative 5 over 21, and we're done. This next problem, again, it looks kind of a lot, but then we have to remember we have like terms. So the a terms can be combined with each other. So let's rearrange our furniture. So we have 7/8 a minus 1/4 a. So those are like terms that can be combined. And then we have plus 2/3 minus 1/4, right? Because these are just numbers, right? They're just fractions. They can be combined. Now, you probably observed that we do not have common denominators. So to get a common denominator here, I can multiply by 2 over 2. So that's going to give me 7/8a minus 2 over 8a. Again, I'll just as a matter of habit and practice bring down the rest of the problem. So now I can actually do this math. Well, what is 7/8a minus 2/8a? Well, 7 minus 2 is 5. So I have 5/8a. Okay, and I'm really done with this part of the problem. So I can come to the other side and think about how to get a common denominator over here. So, of course, this side is missing a 3. So we put a 3 here. This side is missing a 4. So we put a 4 here. So we're going to have 8/12 minus 3/12. Okay. Now, again, I could have done that on the other side with the 8 and the 4. I could have multiplied 8 times 4 and 4 times 8. I was just trying to be a little bit lazy and a little bit faster by just changing the 4. Okay. So 8 minus 3, you probably already figured out, is 12. So this is going to be our final answer. All right, moving on to number 4. This is a matter of substitution. So we have 28 over c minus 35 over x minus y. So according to this, c is negative 4. So I'm going to put a negative 4 there. Okay. Then it says x is 7. So I'm going to put a 7 here. And then it says y is 11. So I'm going to put an 11 here. Okay. So again, I invite you to remember, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Right, we don't have any parentheses, exponents, or roots, but we do have multiplication and division. So let's do our division. What is 28 divided by negative 4? Type it in your calculator and you get negative 7. What is 35 over 7? Type that in your calculator and you should get 5. So now, right, I just have negative 7 minus 5 minus 11. You can put this in your calculator if you want. Negative 7 minus 5 is negative 12. Negative 12 minus 11 is negative 23. So that's your final answer. All right, number 5. Now we're into solving equations. So remember, we always draw this vertical line so we don't get confused by the two sides of our equation. Then we try to get x on one side. I'm going to do that by adding 2x. I could also subtract 5x, but remember, I'm trying to keep my my coefficients of x positive. So that gives me 7x plus 3 equals 6. I am now going to subtract 3 from both sides. I get 7x is equal to 3. Last but not least, I need to divide by 7, and I find that x is equal to 3/7. Remember, we prefer fractions over decimals or any other way of expressing a non-integer number, so we're going to leave it as a fraction. Okay, so now we have a similar problem. Again, it's just a little bit more work. So I'm going to distribute this negative 2, again, going back to my order of operations, right? Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Okay, so I have to resolve those parentheses. 3 and y are not the same, are not like terms, so I can't really combine them or anything. So negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. Negative 2 times negative y is positive 2y, so be careful with that. And then, of course, I'm going to just bring down everything else, just transcribe everything. Okay, so now I want to look at like terms. I have a 7y and a 2y, so I can combine them. 7y plus 2y is 9y. And the reason I can combine them is because they're already on the same side of the equation. If they were on opposite sides of the equation, then I couldn't do that. So now we do have still two variable terms. We have a negative 5y and a positive 9y, but they're on opposite sides. So to get them all on one side, I have to do the opposite. And I'm going to decide to add 5y to both sides, and the reason I'm doing that is because I want my coefficients to stay positive if possible. So we have 4 equals 14y minus 6. We add 6 to both sides, and we get 10 equals 14y. Last but not least, we divide both sides by 14. So we have y is equal to 10 over 14. Now you might realize this can be and should be reduced. 2 goes into both of these numbers, so we get y is equal to 5/6. All right, so once again, we have an equation, but this time we have what everybody fears and dreads, which are fractions, okay? So remember, the easiest way to get rid of fractions is to multiply by your LCD. And we build our LCD by just multiplying the denominators. In this case, we have 5 times 7 times 1, which is 35. So let's see what happens if I multiply every single term in this equation by 35. So times 35, times 35, times 35. Can't leave anybody out. Well, notice 35 divided by 5 is 7. 7 times 3 is 21. So we have 21x over here. 35 divided by 7 is 5. Negative 4 times 5 is negative 20. So we have negative 20 there. And then, of course, we just have 35x. So notice in one step we've gotten rid of all of our fractions, and we've made this a lot easier to solve. So at this point, you might be thinking about subtracting 21x from both sides, but that's going to be a mistake. And the reason is that you're going to get then 0 equals negative 20 plus 14x, and then you have everything on one side. So we really don't want to subtract 21x from both sides. That's really not going to, I mean, you can do it, it's just going to take you longer. Instead, what we really want to do is we want to subtract 35x from both sides. Okay, so we get negative 14x here. And then last but not least, we can divide both sides by negative 14. Okay, so the negatives cancel out, and then you might also realize both things are divisible by 2. So x actually becomes positive 10 over 7. And again, we want to leave that as a fraction. All right, number 8 says the difference of 9 and 5 times a number is 14. Okay, so the difference of 9 and 5 times a number, difference means subtraction, is 14. So that's it. Number 9, this time we have to solve an inequality. So remember, solving an inequality is exactly the same as solving an equation except for 2 main rules. The first rule is that we have to get x on the left side. And then the other rule is that if I divide by a negative number, then I have to flip the inequality sign. So let's get started and see what happens. The first thing I want to do is subtract 3x from both sides. So I have negative 7 is less than 11 plus 6x. Then I'm going to subtract 11 from both sides, see where we go from here. Negative 7 and negative 11 is negative 18. Negative 18 is less than 6x. Okay, so far I have not activated either of these rules, so I haven't had to do anything special or different than if it was an equation. Now I'm going to divide both sides by 6. Notice that 6 is positive, so this does not activate that rule that says I have to flip my inequality sign. Okay, however, when I'm all said and done, my x is on the wrong side. Actually, it's on the right side, and it needs to be on the left side, right? So imagine that this is on a piece of transparent, I don't know, plastic or something, and you're flipping it over. So the x flips, the negative 3 flips, and, okay, remember the large part of the inequality sign still needs to face x. The small part of the inequality sign still needs to face negative 3. So this is our final answer. X is greater than negative 3. All right, now we have x is less than or equal to negative 4, and we want to graph that. Because it's less than or equal to, we are going to use a closed circle. You could also use a bracket notation if you would prefer. And then we are going to shade to the left because that inequality is already pointing to the left. Okay, to express it in interval notation. So remember, this left arrow signifies negative infinity. So if, again, pretending we're a tiny little ant walking along this number line, right, the first thing we see is this little arrow, which represents negative infinity, and then we would stop walking at 4, and because of that closed circle or bracket, whichever notation you decide to use, we would include 4 in our inequality. So that's it. All right, number 11, we have to evaluate this equation if f is equal to 10 and a is equal to -3. So there's not really any math to do here. The answer is just -10/3, and that's it. Okay, this problem we're asked to solve the equation for a. So we have n is equal to r times the quantity a minus s. So there's two different ways I taught you how to do this. One is to divide both sides by r. This is my preferred way because I think it's a little bit faster, and I like things that don't take me very long. So we have n divided by r is equal to a minus s. Again, we're trying to solve for a, so we need to get rid of this minus s. We do that by adding s to both sides. So we have n divided by r plus s is equal to a. So that would be our final answer. Now remember, I told you another way that you could do this if you chose to, and again, to me this takes a little bit longer, so I don't prefer this method, but that's okay. You can use it. It's not wrong. It's just a little bit longer. So r times a minus r times s, right? Again, we're still solving for a, so we're going to add our s to both sides. So we have n plus rs is equal to ra. Then we have to divide both sides by r. So we have n over r plus rs over r is equal to a. And then you can probably see that these r's cancel out. So we still get the same answer, which is n over r plus s. Okay, now we're asked to solve for x. Okay, that means we want to get x all by itself on one side of the equation. That means we leave x where it is and move everything that's not x away from x. So we start by subtracting b from both sides. So we have y minus b is equal to m times x. N is attached to x through multiplication, so to undo multiplication we must divide. Therefore x is equal to the quantity of y minus b all divided by m, and that will be our final answer. Alright, the next problem is a proportion. Remember, we solve proportions by cross multiplying. So we have 4 times n is equal to 5 times -26. So 5 times -26 is -130. Then we divide both sides by 4. Okay, and our final answer is -32.5, or if you want to express it as an improper fraction, you could just say that it is -65/2. Okay, the next problem is also a proportion, but this time it is a proportion word problem. Okay, so it says that we need 15 milliliters of a jug for every 38 liters of water. We'll just write water as H2O. So then it says how much water is needed. So that's going to go on the bottom. Remember, whatever variable starts on the top stays on the top. Whatever starts on the bottom stays on the bottom. Okay, so how much water, we'll call it X, is needed for 4.5 milliliters of the jug. Okay, again, notice the jugs, it starts on top, stays on top. Water starts on the bottom, stays on the bottom. That is the key to setting this up and solving it correctly. So I'm going to get rid of all those confusing words and symbols and letters and just set it up as a normal proportion like this. So then we cross multiply. So we have 15x is equal to, let's see, 38 times 4.5 is 171. I'm going to divide by 15. Okay, so we get 11.4 liters of water. Okay, so that would be our final answer. Next one, it says a shirt costs $45 and a pair of pants costs $50. If sales tax is 6%, do you have enough to buy both with $100? Okay, so we're going to have the cost of the shirt plus the shirt tax plus the cost of the pants plus the tax on the pants, right? It has to be less than or equal to 100. Okay, well, we know the shirt costs $45. We know that the pants cost $50. And we know that the tax on the shirt is 6% of the cost. And we know that the tax on the pants is also 6% of the cost of the pants. Okay, and again, that needs to be less than or equal to 100. If it's more than $100, I guess we don't have enough money to buy it. Okay, so if you type this in your calculator, you get 270. And this is $3. Okay, so now all we have to do is add all this up. So let's see. 45 plus 270 plus 50 plus $3 is $100.70. So we're just 70 cents shy. So unfortunately, unless we have a friend who lets us borrow 70 cents, we cannot afford to buy the shirt and the pants and pay tax. Okay, the next problem, what percent, so we translate this into an x, of, that means times, 50, that means 50, is, that means equals, 27, that means 27. So we have 50x is equal to 27. We solve that by dividing both sides by 50. And that gives us 0.54. Now remember the problem says what percent, so we need to rate 54 or 0.54 as a percent, and of course multiply by 100%, so you get 54%. All right, the next problem we have to rewrite these. So the percent is 84%, that's the same as 0.84, or it's also the same as 84 over 100. Now remember 84 over 100 is can be reduced. It can be, you can divide 4 on the top and bottom, and you can reduce it to 21 over 25. Okay, 7/8. So the easiest way to do this is just type 7 divided by 8 into your calculator. Okay, if you type 7 divided by 8 into your calculator, it should give you 0.875. If you multiply that by 100%, or just 100, right, it gives you 87.5%, and that's your answer. All right, in the next problem, we're asked to find the y-intercept. Remember, and this is not going to be given to you on the final, you need to remember this, to find the y-intercept, we set x equal to 0 and solve. Another way to think about it is to just eliminate the x variable. Remember, it's the cover-up method, and so we would have 2y equals -6. To solve this, we divide both sides by 2. We find that y is -3. However, we need to express our final answer as an ordered pair, so the final answer is 0, -3. Okay, now we're asked to find the x-intercept of this equation. Remember, to find the x-intercept, we set y equal to 0, or, using the cover-up method, we ignore the y term. That means that we have -12x is equal to -6, and then we just divide both sides by -12, so we get x is equal to positive 1/2. Now, we need to write our answer as an ordered pair, so the ordered pair is 1/2, 0. The 1/2 comes from the x, the 0 comes from the y. Find the slope of a line formed by these 2 points. So in order to do this, you have to know or memorize your slope equation, your slope formula. It is not going to be given to you. So remember, when you have an ordered pair, the first number is x, the second number is y. Usually I call the first one 1, the second one 2, but it really doesn't matter. So we have -7 minus -3 over 4 minus 8. Now be careful, guys, and watch your signs here. This becomes -7 plus 3, and then 4 minus 8 is -4. -7 plus 3 is -4. So I have -4 divided by -4. That is positive 1. I would also accept positive 1 over 1, because a lot of people are more comfortable when their slope is a fraction, so that they have a rise and a run. Either way is fine. All right, now we have to find the slope of this line. So we need to find some good points that land on the grid. So here's one good point. Let me use red here so you can see it really well. So I'm going to use this point here, that point there. What else? I could use this point, or this point, that point, that point, or that point. These are all valid points that I can use to find my slope. So let's just pick 2 random points, doesn't matter which ones. Okay, so remember, the slope of a line, m, is the change in y, the vertical displacement, divided by the horizontal displacement, or the change in x. So to get from A to B, okay, my vertical displacement, my delta y, right, is -2, because remember, down is considered a negative direction. Then my horizontal displacement, delta x, is to the right, which is considered a positive direction, so that would be +1. So you have -2 over +1, And we could literally just write that as negative 2. If you leave it as negative 2 over 1, that's okay too. Now it says find the equation of a line with slope 3 that passes through the point 2, negative 4. We want slope-intercept form, which looks like this, y equals mx plus b. Okay, we're given a slope of 3, so we can go ahead and fill in 3 in place of x. So we have y is equal to 3x plus something. But how are we going to find that something? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to put 2 in place of x. We're going to put negative 4 in place of y, and then we're going to use those values to solve for our b or our y-intercept. So x is 2, y is negative 4, and I'm going to fill in the equation around him. So negative 4 equals, well, 3 times 2 is 6 plus something. Let's keep solving. I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. Negative 4 minus 6 is negative 10. Therefore, my y-intercept, my b, is negative 10. I'm not done yet, right, because I have to write this as y equals mx plus b. In place of m, I'm going to write 3, and now I know my b is negative 10. So my final answer is y is equal to 3x minus 10. Now I'm asked to graph the line y is equal to negative 4/3 x plus 2. Remember, I always look at the y-intercept to figure out where I start. I start at the plus 2. From here, my slope tells me where to go. My slope is negative 4 over 3, so we need to go down 1, 2, 3, 4 units, and then we need to go right 1, 2, 3 units. When I do that, I can put down another point. I can continue this pattern going down 4 and over 3 until I run out of room. Remember, it is also valid to go up 1, 2, 3, 4 units, right? Positive 4, and then left 1, 2, 3 units in order to make some more points. So I can do that as well. Once you feel that you've completely covered your graph in points, then it's time to connect those points with a line. Now we're asked to find the equation of a line that's already been graphed for us. So remember, we have y equals mx plus b. So the two pieces of information I have to extract from the graph, one is the slope and the other one is the y-intercept. And I can do that in any order. If it's okay with you guys, I'm going to go ahead and find the y-intercept because it just seems faster and easier to me. So this is the y-intercept right here. It's where the blue line crosses the y, or the vertical axis. Okay, and that is the ordered pair 0, negative 2. So I already know that my b is negative 2. Okay, then I'm going to have a bunch of other points on this line, and I can use any two of those points that I want to find my slope. Okay, so let's just pick, I don't know, these 2 points over here, right? So remember my slope. What is my slope? My slope is the change in y over the change in x. So to get from a to b, I need to go up 1 unit, so that's a positive 1 change in y, and then I need to go right 2 units, so that would be a positive 2 change in x. I could also think about going from here to here, right? Well, that would be down 1, which is negative 1, and left 2, which is negative 2. Well, think about it. Negative 1 over negative 2 is the same as positive 1 over positive 2. Okay, so either way, my slope ends up being positive 1/2. So all in all, my equation is y is equal to 1/2 x minus 2. So that is my final answer. The last equation asks me to graph 2 equations and then find out where they meet. So let's start graphing y equals negative 4x plus 2. So of course I start at 2 because that's my y-intercept. Then my slope dictates that I go down 1, 2, 3, 4, and then over 1 unit. Remember, if you're confused, you can rewrite negative 4 as negative 4 over 1. So these are the points that I'm going to have. Okay? Once I have enough points, then I can draw my line. So there's my line. Now notice I have another equation, which is x plus y equals negative 1. Now this is going to be difficult to graph because it's not in slope-intercept form. I can simply subtract x from both sides and fix that problem in one step. That gives me y is equal to negative 1x minus 1, or y equals negative x minus 1. Now I can tell just by looking at that that my y-intercept is negative 1, and my slope is also negative 1, or negative 1 over 1. So I can completely cover my graph in dots to graph this line. So, do these lines meet, and if so, where? They absolutely meet, and they meet at this point right here. Well, what is this point? Well, remember, you start at the origin. To get to that point, you would have to go 1 unit to the right, so that means my x is positive 1. And then I would have to go 2 units down, which means that my y value is negative 2. So this system of equations has one solution at x equals 1, y equals negative 2.